Hey there guys, what's up? Francis Undead. Tonight I'd like to talk about when we should give things up, how we should give things up, and how to use visualizations to pinpoint the direction towards happiness, towards fulfilling life, or at least a fulfilling duration of your life. So, well, maybe you know, you always hear things like do not give up, do not give yourself up, do not give up your passion for doing a certain thing, for engaging with certain tasks, projects, However, do bear in mind that as a single human individual, we cannot just have everything and everyone chasing us, kissing our asses, and certainly we cannot live to please everyone and to obtain and gain everything we certainly cannot live to please everyone and attain and try to attain or obtain everything we wish for. So yes, basically we need to learn how to live with minimal weight of burdens. Especially, I'm preaching this. I'm preaching this principle to people who are currently wrestling with with other people's thoughts, thinkings, and ideologies about themselves. To in particular to those who value how others tend to perceive themselves. Especially Asians, because Asians usually they care about saving themselves from losing faces in front of other people, and so if you happen to be residing in any of though I might sound kind of though I might sound too stereotypical to some of you guys here, I'd say for a multitude of Asian youths, especially Singaporean, Chinese, Japanese, Korean, Taiwanese included. For those youths, because I used to be like that. I used to, exploit lots of principles, codex, to pressurize myself so that I could manage to achieve something big. However, one thing was I failed to realize that we can attain a fairly decent level of quality of life, or at least we can attain a fairly decent quality of life just by by simply by simply giving up things that we don't quite need, such as fame, such as reputations. Though I do know that reputation matters a lot to business persons, to business entities, because once a business entity loses reputation, it will lose customers, it will lose business, therefore it will run out of the business, it will get kicked out of the business. So yes, reputation itself does matter to business people. Yet, pride does not matter, because none of us can always stay in a position where we can easily earn the admirations from others, from especially from other people around us, by achievements, by those sort of prestigious job titles, entitlements, or possessions, such as houses, savings, fine clothing, fine garments, etc. So, in so doing, and in so living, you will basically you will drag yourself into an unnecessary and undue rat race with excessive amount of indoctrinations which you have to inject to yourself on a constant and consistent basis. Basically, by targeting, by making or by acquiring a multitude amount of wealth, fame, and pride, you also make yourself a target for coveting, by a multitude of competitors, rivals. People will start to envy and covet, and start to covet your position, your possessions, and your fame. And how not just Jesus, God himself, but even ourselves know it far too well that nowadays people at least tend to just insult, humiliate one another in order to simply feel better about themselves by insulting and humiliating others who seem to have earned a higher status, or a higher social and financial, or socioeconomic status than they did. So yeah, and yes, the Bible also teaches us about when we should give things up. Something like the second book of Peter, somewhere where is it? Yes, should be here, I guess. Of course, you will something about you will not receive credit for doing the wrong thing and suffer. Yes, it's on the first book of Peter, chapter 2, verses 20. So the first book of Peter, chapter 2, verses 20 says, but how is it to your credit if you receive a beating for doing wrong and endure it? But if you suffer for doing good and you endure it, this is commendable before God. By NIV version of the Bible, aka New International Version. So yeah, so we have been doing plenty of wicked things, behaved like pagans, and yet we will still continue to behave like pagans, like non-believers, like non-Christians, more or less, to say the least. We will fall. We will constantly and consistently fall victims of sins without us even knowing. Of course, on a daily basis, even cause me myself, pretty much still behaves like that. Though I do know, God is not quite pleased with me. So yeah. What else? That means we must learn how to give things up, when to give things up, and when to give, and just give things up. Give those that don't matter to you up. Just give up those that don't matter to you. That are less than important, less than vital. So yeah. And perhaps next time when I make a YouTube video about the Bible, about my own interpretations about the Bible, I will be talking about how I reckon the Bible teaches us about using the visualization techniques to attain our objective, when it comes to building a successful and joyful life. Since on the book of Daniel, Daniel obviously had visionary powers to interpret dreams for the king, for the king Nebuchadnezzar, and later on he also continued to fit pretty well in a role of sorcerer or some sort of a prophet for King Cyrus, something like that. So yeah, I never stop studying the Bible, never stop practicing and learning its techniques about how to live, how to live a fulfilling, but not necessarily, happy life in terms of the flesh, though we live, though we dwell in a world teeming with sin, suffering, and agony, we can still attain peace, as long as we perceive God as supreme. As long as we see God, as long as we perceive and worship God as the sovereign, the supreme, and the only sovereign governing entity of the entire universe. So, thank you again for watching and listening. Stay tuned, stay blessed, stay faithful. I shall see you on the next video on YouTube. Bye bye, cheers.